Joseph Rojas has quite a story. I am so pleased to meet you. Joseph, my daughter heard you and your band, Seventh Day Slumber, I think about 7 years ago at Kingdom Bound. And she said, Mom, these guys are the real deal.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, it's an honor to be here, and thanks for having me.
What a story. By 14, you had a $400 a day cocaine habit. You were selling drugs. Tell us about the home you grew up in.
Well, I was raised by a single mother on a single mother's income. My father, when I was about 3.5 years old, my father was arrested for physically abusing my mother. It's the only memory that I have of a father, actually, as childhood memory. And it's kind of weird because I don't remember anything at 4 years old or 5 years old, good or bad. But I remember being 3.5 years old and seeing my father about 10 feet away from me on top of my mother, beating her. I still remember the blood. I still remember the sirens, and it's traumatic, and it stuck with me. He was arrested. He got out of jail, and he took a job working for an oil company overseas, and I never saw my father again after that until much later on in life. I was bitter and angry by that time. But my mother raised me on a single mother's income, worked hard, and that she loved my brother and I, unconditionally. But it wasn't really a church, type of environment, church home or Christian home environment, And by the age of 12, I was already thinking about suicide. I just didn't feel. I've struggled with my weight my whole life, and it's kind of ups and downs, and also just never felt like I was accepted. And by the age of 12 years old, I was already using drugs and alcohol. By the age of 14, I tried my first line of cocaine. So I didn't have a $400 a day habit at 14, but I started using cocaine at 14.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I was going to say, where did you get that money?
Yeah, that was at 14 years old. Well, it's a lot of money as an adult, because later down the road, I did end up with a $400 a day cocaine addiction. Mm-hmm. But you're talking 16 years old, in and out of trouble with the law, and my mother sent me to behavioral centers and different things like that. Until the insurance money ran out, and people wouldn't take me anymore, and I just struggled a lot, and with drugs they progressed and began to take over my life, and by the age of 18 I was convicted of my first felony. By the age of 21 I was using $400 a day.
That was
it.
The peak. 21.
It was. I was selling drugs, so I always had drugs with me.
Sure.
At that point.
Well, the light enters when you're 18, not for you directly. Mm-hmm. But for your mother.
Yeah, absolutely.
What happened?
Well, my mother was desperate. She was looking for help from me so desperately. She was willing to do anything. And my mother was raised Catholic, and I say raised Catholic, but when you're Catholic, you're born Catholic, and that's what my mom told me. You're born Catholic. I remember being 14, trying to go to a Baptist church with my buddy who. He was a Christian, I wasn't, but he was an awesome guitar player, and I just wanted to hang around with him. And my mom was like, no, you were born Catholic. You can't go to the... And I was like, wow, that's amazing. I didn't even believe in God. What does it matter is what I told her. But she's like, no. But anyway, my mother was so desperate.
Lines were more defined then.
Right. Well, exactly. And so she met this lady that took her to church, and this lady said, God, he can change your life. Just come. And my mother gave her life to Jesus, and things begin to change. You're talking about a lady who has worked her whole life. She didn't smile a whole lot, it seemed. I mean, with a son that's in and out of jails and institutions and going through all this stuff, mother didn't look like she had slept in years, it seemed like. But my mother, she began to smile more. I would see that in her, and she prayed for me every night. And I could hear her, and I'm talking about prayers that had to hurt to pray, prayers that came from the stomach on her son's behalf. She's sprawled out before the Lord, just praying on her son's behalf, and I saw that, and I started to question whether or not there really was this God.
Is anybody listening?
Right. And I told my mom, I said that's awesome that you're praying for me, and that's a really nice thing for you to do. But I wasn't an atheist. I used to say it, even in interviews, I used to say, yeah, I was an atheist. But as I get older and I look back on it, I don't really think I was an atheist. I just didn't know. And actually, a better way of saying it is, even if there was, and I told I told my mom, or asked my mom this, I said, even if there is this holy, righteous God in heaven, what would he want with a worthless drug addict like me, a felon? And my mom said, son, when God looks at you, he doesn't see a worthless drug addict. He sees the apple of his eye, and he loves you, and he wants to heal your broken heart. And that did something to me. It really did, but I just felt like there was still no hope for a guy like me.
Now, I read that your mom poured her life savings into sending you to a rehab in California, that you...
Insurance money ran out. So she takes $30,000, you know, she'd saved up. This is a lady that's picked cotton since she was 6 years old to help her parents buy her own school shoes. And now she's working at this furniture store selling furniture on commission, saved everything she could, sends me to this rehabilitation center. And 30 days later, I was clean for 30 days. And then 30 days later, I was high again, and my mother's life savings was gone. And it really did, I was tired of hurting her. And just suicide just kept going through my mind. Like, this is all this is ever going to be. You're going to just continue to hurt her. I stole from my own mother to get high. A mother that loved me would have given her life for mine. And so I just felt like suicide was the only answer.
So you end up overdosing. You're being rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. And her prayers.
Yeah, I remember that her walking in, I had just taken enough cocaine that I knew was going to stop my heart. By this point, cocaine wouldn't even get me high anymore. I was ready to end it all. My mother walked in. I overdosed. She called the paramedics and was screaming and crying out to God. He promised me, and just praying. I don't know what all she was saying, but it was in the back of the ambulance that I felt the hand of God. And it was more than something that I had seen on, Christian television, or someone read to me in their favorite devotional book. I experienced the hand of God, and it was amazing. And I couldn't speak. I had tubes and wires and everything like that. But I remember speaking from my heart. I don't know what I said, but it was something like, I'm filthy. I'm damaged. I don't feel like there's anything good at all about me when I look at myself. But God, if you see something you still want, anything good at all, I'll give my life to you.
It's beautiful to read, to hear. I've seen your testimony on the internet, that this was the first experience in your life of having a father.
Felt the
and
love
feeling
of a father.
complete as a person.
Right.
In that ambulance.
Mm-hmm. I think that that emptiness that I had, it made me long for something to fill it, and I ran to drugs and I ran to all these different things, but I was just trying to fill this void, and the truth is that God saw it all. He saw me running to this and running to that, but what I was looking for could only be found in the arms of Jesus Christ.
It's what has happened since that. Let's just 2 years to get clean. I mean, that wasn't an instant,
No.
okay. I'm sure that was a challenging journey. You prayed for your dad. Tell us what God has done in that level, that arena of brokenness.
Well, my dad, he came back. I think it was about 14. That's all a blur, But it was about 14, and it was pretty cool for the first couple weeks or whatever. But there was still a lot of bitterness there, and I prayed a lot. And I asked. It was after I got saved. I was praying that the Lord would give me strength to forgive him, and even the desire. Long story short, I did forgive my father. I prayed for him every day, and my father ended up calling me one day. Said he, just wanted to talk to me. There was some other issues there, and I invited him to Nashville. He ended up coming with us on the bus to one of our concerts, and with the band. And I said, I want you to see what God has done in your son's life. And first concert, I started off my testimony like I always do. There was 5,000 people there, and they were all looking at us on a mountain or on a hill. My father was down underneath where I was playing, and he was looking at them. And then I started off my testimony saying, basically, that my father used to abuse my mother, and I was like, oh no, my dad's here. And he looked down immediately like, this is why my son brought me here, to get me back, payback. But I ended up finishing the story. I felt like I needed to. I finished the story, and then I said, my father's here at his first Seventh Day Slumber concert. And the crowd cheered for my father. He looked up. He was crying. Then the next night, I gave an altar call, and my father came to the altar, and he gave his life to Jesus. So
Doesn't get better.
it's amazing what God will do when we're willing.
And that dear mom, whose heart I'm sure was shredded over and over. You would call her from concerts and talk about the response when Seventh Day Slumber performed for thousands of young people.
Right.
We are the broken is the declared truth and testimony, and I'm just wondering what are the key areas of brokenness that you see as you and the band are reaching out to thousands?
Well, I think "We Are the Broken" has two meanings here, but a lot of it, the kids that we see there feel like they're broken, like they're damaged beyond repair, and so anyway, and now you go from that definition to being broken before Christ and having Him put you back together, and so there's a lot of hurting kids out there, and adults as well.
You're ministering to these kids online as well.
Absolutely. The first year that I did Teen Hope Line, which I was the president of for 4 years, and now it's kind of morphed into Joseph Rojas Ministries, but we ministered over 50,000 hurting teenagers online that year. 17
years you have been doing this, and there have been other very significant blessings since that encounter in an ambulance. How many years ago?
That was in 96. That was early 96.
96. Tell us about your family.
I have a beautiful wife. She's amazing. Her name's Lori. We've been married almost 15 years. August 7th, it'll be 15 years. We got 3 beautiful boys, a 12-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 7-year-old. And my kids travel with me, each one since they were 6 weeks old. My wife, Lori's the road manager for Seventh Day Slumber. She's also the home school teacher for our
the
3
boys,
kids. Yeah.
Your ball team there. And you're just back from Nicaragua, the whole family on a missions trip with Compassion.
Well, it was a while back, but yet my son celebrated his 11th birthday there because he sponsors a child through Compassion, and Compassion allowed us to bring our whole family and to meet my son's sponsored child. He was doing card tricks at our concerts for tips so he could sponsor his child. And the first night, I thought he'd make a couple dollars. First night, he made enough to sponsor his child for the whole month. And so it's just amazing. I'm watching here this kid at that age I think he was 8.5 years old when he wanted to do that, when he wanted to sponsor a child. And I'm watching this kid that's finding ways to do something. And here we are as adults thinking of reasons why we can't do something. And so I was inspired by him, and I still am inspired by my children.
The Rojas clan has a whole new story, thanks to Jesus. Thank you, Joseph, for coming and telling us this. Seventh Day Slumber, really appropriate. Seventh day God rested. You're enjoying that Sabbath rest in your soul. It's what we're talking about all month. And this CD is at our e-store. God bless you.
Thank you for having me.